Only 22% of university presidents in our nation are female. And for these women who do make it into the presidency, there certainly appear to be trade-offs. Most male presidents, 90%, are married, while less than 2/3 of female presidents are. Of those female presidents who are married, many wait to move into the presidency until husbands are retired. When I became a dean, it was because I aspired to be one, and I certainly felt that I could do the job better than some deans I'd seen or worked for. But the cultural shock came when I realized how different my leadership philosophy was and how different my style was from those 13 men in that president's boardroom. I was a dean for 10 years and continued to be the only female dean on that council for all those 10 years. Then life came along and provided me with an unexpected challenge or opportunity, and I went virtually overnight from dean to president, without pause for a vice presidency or without pause to reflect on the path or my ideas about what I expected from that path. It was only to be an interim presidency for just 1 year. Social work is also not the normal path to the presidency, the way that sciences or the humanities often are. At the time I said yes in 1995 to the presidency, I was the only social worker in the nation who was a university president. And 15 years later, there are only 2 more. My point is that I was not only unique as a female president, but I was and still am rather isolated as a social worker who became a university president. You know it's not easy sometimes. It's not easy being the first in a position, the only on an administrative team, or the lone woman interviewing for an executive position. I remember back in 2003, when I was preparing to travel to Cal State San Marcos for the presidential interviews, I began to pack this fuchsia suit. My husband looked at me and said, "Do you want this job?" And I said, "I do, but I want people to know what they're getting. I want them to know my authentic self." And he said, "Well, if you insist on wearing that suit to the public forum, please say something about it." So I started that public forum in San Marcos to about 200 campus and community people by noting, if you're wondering about my choice of this fuchsia suit, it's because I am the first candidate, and I want you to remember me at the end because I'm fairly certain that none of the other candidates will be in fuchsia. The crowd roared, and when I was selected president, the North County Times headline read, "Fuchsia suit wins." So along the path, I learned that whether purposive or accidental, assuming a leadership position can be both daunting and exhilarating, can be seen as both an honor and a burden, that leadership is about relationships, authenticity, and vision. And when asked, even during these difficult fiscal times, is it worth it? I answer, absolutely. As women who are in leadership positions or aspire to be, we know all too well the host of stereotypes that we face daily. We are told, for example, that we need to be more assertive, but not too assertive, that we are disliked, that we need to be collaborative, but not so friendly that we lack credibility, that we need to be more competitive than our male colleagues, but in a way that does not threaten our male colleagues, and that we need to be role models for other women, but that women may need to behave more like men to be successful. And so I conclude from all of that advice that women obviously need a good sense of humor. And I certainly have had to continue to hone my sense of humor and laugh about some of the barriers and obstacles along the way, or at least I laugh about some of them now. Back in the early 70s, during my very first professional job interview, I was asked, was I married? Did I have children? Was I planning to have children? This was my first view of the concrete wall between the expectations of professionalism and advancement and the dominant paradigm's expectations. The differential expectations continued, and a few years later, while in my first year of the doctoral program, a male doctoral colleague, trying to be helpful, told me I'd make my points better with male faculty if I would not be so assertive. It wasn't becoming. Becoming, I asked myself. This wasn't a beauty contest. This was the academy where ideas were supposed to be challenged. A sense of humor was certainly necessary when in the third year of my deanship at the University of Houston, the university president, introducing a number of the deans to the senior Texas senator, introduced me and then added, "And she's the sweetest smelling dean on campus." And in case you are privately thinking that gender stereotypes don't happen anymore, I bet you're not thinking that though, even now in 2010, when my husband and I attend a social function with name tags in full display, people turn to him and ask him about his university. So as women, not only must we fight against such archaic stereotypes, but we must make choices and trade-offs, adopting more strategies to not only combat those stereotypes, but to succeed in our chosen careers while achieving balance in our lives. Balance is crucial, and sometimes, as you well know, balance is really a balancing act. Balance is more easily created, I have found, if one builds and nurtures strong teams that you trust, if you create and fulfill an authenticity in style and values. It comes with a commitment to building relationships within the organization and to using those as building blocks to influence and direct the organization. Another element necessary for achieving balance is optimism. It's a source of power because it's an essential ingredient to vision. Pursuit of the new idea, of the impossible, takes a worldview that life is okay, that one is in charge of one's destiny. Optimism is important to my personal mental health, an important ingredient to my leadership equation. It helps me focus on how I can learn. It frames my encounter with others to learn where people are smart, not if they are smart. It focuses me on the good and the possible, not on the bad and the barriers. To achieve leadership success with balance and optimism, I have learned some important lessons along my path. One, always walk the talk. The difference between positional authority and real power and influence comes from modeling values and building relationships. It's easy to talk about a set of values and institutional principles. It is far more difficult to examine whether you adhere to them on a daily operational basis. Two, be an active listener. That means that leaders have to stop talking in order to actively listen. We have to be able to provide opportunities to listen, and we must be willing to listen to the very things we least want to hear. Three, focus on people and doing good. When I think of powerful people, I think of people who recognize their own limitations, who appreciate the resources, strengths, and skills of others, who touch and affirm others, working with people rather than expecting people to work for them. Understand that the key resources required to change an institution are much more likely to be human than fiscal. See your choice as a leader to be a special opportunity to make a difference, not to get the spotlight. During my 25 years in leadership positions, I have experienced that one of the most rewarding aspects of being a leader is the opportunity to mentor and inspire the next generation of women leaders. While my generation has trailblazed a path of first for women, the next and future generations must remove the tokenism that still exists of women as lone and sole and few. For this to occur, however, it's our duty and our reward as female leaders to inspire and mentor those who will still come after us. So I would urge you to mentor others to help push up that glass ceiling, to seek mentoring in order to find windows of opportunity through those concrete walls, and network in order to overcome isolation and locate new sources of energy. I am certain that each one of us has hit our head on that glass ceiling. And although we haven't shattered it yet, the work we do every day pushes that ceiling up a little higher, bit by bit. We have found ourselves in the velvet ghettos of our organizations with good-looking jobs that go nowhere, and we have faced those concrete walls of gender discrimination. And while these experiences still happen, so has change occurred. So it is clear that we have the collective power to make a difference for ourselves and for future generations. It is imperative that we continue or we become agents of change. I challenge you to set big, audacious goals, to expect to be successful and expect to lead, to go for what you want. And remember, there's never a good time to have a child, to change a job or a career, to confront an adversarial position. So why not do it now? Take your position, but not yourself, seriously, knowing that the ingredients of authenticity and humor are essential, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. I am optimistic that as we showcase our skills, build on our talents of one another, and affirm and touch others, and speak in our own powerful voices, we will increasingly succeed. And as we do, we will enrich our lives, create learning organizations, hone effective governments, support nurturing communities, and in so doing, shatter that glass ceiling. Thank you.